first of all, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's great to have you at the event, and for everyone in the chat as well. Thank you so much for joining Emmy's session today, and thank you for joining us at the event. It's great to have you as well. So, Emmy, some brief background, I guess, for you, for everyone in the chat. So, Maria-Elena, Emmy Rousseau is the founder of Trinity Transformations. It's a company devoted to helping the anxious overachiever release the shame and guilt they've been hanging on to surrounding their high-functioning depression and/or anxiety. This is something that Emmy has struggled with for years and developed a robust toolbox that allowed her to stop feeling like she was treading water and eventually truly thrive. So, I can definitely relate. That's something that I've struggled with myself as a professional. So I am looking forward to your session today, and I think it's going to be of use to a lot of people attending.
Thank you. I think so too. I know that, thank you for the introduction, and it is really something that so many of us in this in these days are really struggling with, whether we've been diagnosed with, a mental health issue, or it's just a symptom of, because really before we even start, I want to say that mental health is a spectrum, so it's from perfectly mentally healthy to having severe mental health issues. But most of us are at neither end of that spectrum. Most of us are somewhere in the middle, right? So, and that's okay. Like I really, my kind of mission in life is that people understand that there need to be no more stigma to mental health than there is to physical health, So most of us are not perfectly physically healthy, the same way that most of us are not perfectly physically, unhealthy. And so it's the same with mental health. So today's session, though, with all the stress that is going on day to day in everyone's jobs, I know that as controllers, you have high stress jobs anyways. And I can only imagine that this year it's just even more stressful. I myself am a teacher, so although I don't know the controller position from a corporate, I've not been a controller. I don't work in the corporate field, but I know that your jobs just get more stressful this year. Everybody's kind of whether it's because you're adjusting to working from home and maybe you have little kids that you have to help homeschool, or so many other things, just the extra demands of the job because of COVID restrictions, because of your own mental stress that's going on. There's so many layers to all this global trauma that we are experiencing right now. So, and now we've been in it for a year, and it's just so many people have had it up to here. So anyways, I'm excited to be here presenting to everyone. As I said, if anybody wants to just introduce themselves and feel free to type in the chat as you go if you hear something that really resonates with you or something you have a question about at any time. I try not to look at the chat because I will be like, oh yes, and I'll jump in and talk about it at that time. But it's okay. I can get back on track, so it's fine if I do happen to think so. So let's get started. And
so I will hop off for now, and I'll come on at the end of your session to do your brief intro and let people know what's coming up next. But you can kind of take it away from here. All right.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jessie.
Absolutely.
All right. So we are going to continue on, and there we go. So I'll just tell you, as you heard, a little bit about me in the intro, but my mission statement really is to help that anxious overachiever. And I feel like a lot of you are probably that type of overachiever. Whether you would relate to being anxious or not, you might not. And maybe it's just, in certain moments you're anxious. You may not relate to being an anxious overachiever all the time, but I'd be willing to bet that overachiever, more of you than not, would relate to that. And if you do, and you're like, oh yeah, that's me, again, feel free to type that in the chat too. So that's who I want to help, because I was that person. I call myself a recovering perfectionist. I call myself a recovering overachiever, because that was most of my life from as a child. I didn't want to do anything unless I could be perfect at it. I had such high standards for myself, and it really wreaking havoc on my body and on my mental health. And so as I got well and got all these tools. I'm the type of person, when something's working, I have to share it. And so it's now my passion to share with others that kind of thing. Thank you, Mark. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. So I am a transformational speaker and coach. I have been an elementary school teacher for over 20 years, also a fitness instructor and a mom of 3. That's a little bit about me. And of course, someone who deals with high functioning depression and anxiety. So what I want us to actually start with is we're going to just start with 1 minute to tune into ourselves and think about your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, all of those things. I invite you to, if you are comfortable, close your eyes. If you're not, just put your gaze at a 45-degree angle downward so that you're not looking at everything around you. And we're going to just take a moment to start to breathe. Just notice our breath. We don't actually have to change anything. Just notice it. And we're going to do a quick body scan, starting at the top of our head. And we're going to move our way down. And as we go, we're just going to notice if we're holding on to any tension or stress in that part of our body. So thinking about your forehead, is your brow furrowed? Is your jaw feeling locked? Maybe is the tongue on the roof of your mouth. That's also a sign of tension. Moving down your neck and your shoulders. Notice if you're holding any tension there. Every time we're moving, breathing in and out. Don't forget to breathe. Anything in your upper back or your chest. Any tension in your torso, lower back, hips. Continue down, moving down through your legs, over the knees, down the front of your shins and the back of your calves, right down to your ankles and your feet, all the way to your toes, and just let any of that tension flow right out into the earth. Take a few more deep breaths as you let that tension just flow out as much as you can. And to just noticing it. If any stays, it's okay. Just taking 1 or 2 minutes for ourselves. So it doesn't mean it's all necessarily going to just stop automatically. You can open your eyes if they were closed. And again, if anyone cares to share in the chat about how they're arriving, how they're feeling, or how that exercise helped them to feel, if it made you feel any different, you're welcome to. Also on a scale of 1 to 10, and I invite you to share it in the chat or just to have that number mentally. Think about with 1 being totally overwhelmed and 10 being completely on top of things. How have you been feeling most of the time over the past month? Many of us have been feeling, good. And that's the thing. When we take that moment to just notice, we notice things we didn't even realize, right? Like, oh, I didn't even know my brow was furrowed. The whole like tongue on the roof of your mouth thing, I didn't even know that was a stress thing until about a couple of months ago. And I was like, my tongue is always on the roof of my mouth. Is that a problem? But it actually isn't. Maybe it's just naturally where my tongue tends to lay. But if I become conscious of it and I can consciously relax those muscles more, it helps. So often that's all it takes is for us to become conscious of it, to start to relax those muscles. So a lot of us have been experiencing anxiety. And again, I want to stress that this doesn't mean that we have necessarily a diagnosis of anxiety, but we've been having moments and feelings of anxiety. Wouldn't you agree? Mm-hmm. And I heard this amazing definition that anxiety is a combination of a lack of control and fear of the unknown. And I was like, well, there's COVID in a nutshell, right? We don't have control over so many things. When can I get the vaccine? When is this all going to end? The unknown of the when. Like a year ago, I thought I was getting an extra 2 weeks of March break. as a teacher. And here we are a year later, and we're still in the situation, you know, and there may be light at the end of the tunnel, but we're still not sure. So that causes anxiety. So if you have been feeling anxiety, well then, it's no surprise, is it? And if it is you, if that's you, you are not alone. 1 in 4 Canadians will be diagnosed with a mood disorder in their life. And that statistic, by the way, is pre-COVID. So we can only imagine how much higher it is now. I would venture to say, I bet it's doubled, but that's just my own guess. It's not, you know, based on a scientific statistic, but we know that mental health issues have definitely increased dramatically. So you're definitely not alone. And part of the reason why we feel so stressed is that trauma can affect your window of tolerance. And I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with the window of tolerance, but basically, you know, we have this natural window of things we can tolerate on a day-to-day basis. Here we go. But as we get experiencing stress or trauma, especially trauma, boom, the window shrinks. So before, our lives, you know, have up and downs, and they mostly go into our regular window. Of course, something here, oh, that makes me really angry. Something down here, that makes me feel sad or kind of frozen, or that kind of thing. But most of them fit within my window of tolerance. So all of a sudden, my window is shrunk. Well, even when things haven't changed, all of a sudden, those things are not in my window of tolerance anymore. So now I'm either becoming hyper aroused. So I'm getting angry, I'm getting anxious, all of those things you can see there in the red box. Or I'm becoming hypo aroused, where I'm frozen, I'm feeling exhausted, I have no motivation, and all those things that you see in there. And so I want you to recognize that it's not uncommon and it's not abnormal to be having these reactions over things that seem like before they wouldn't have bothered us like this, okay? So what we need to try to bring our window of tolerance back up. And sometimes we can do it in things that I'm going to talk about today. And sometimes we need more help, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong about asking for help. And a lot of overachievers and strong people really feel like, I can't ask for help, it's a sign of weakness. But I want to tell you, and I felt like that too. For years, I did not ask for help, and I did not share my diagnosis because I thought that people would feel I was weak. I thought that they would think, who wants a teacher, like who wants their child to be taught by a depressed person? What friends are going to take any advice from me? But really, when I started to open up and share my story, and I was willing to ask for help, it was amazing how much support was there. So the support can come from friends, the support can come from coaches, the support can come from your doctor, and all of that, you know, a therapist, any kind of medical professional. All of that is good. Sometimes our friends, oh, I always forget to turn her video off. But so sometimes our friends are not equipped to help us enough, and that's okay too. Well, one of the things we can do to help bring our window of tolerance up is to look for the gifts in life. So this was an example. Mel Robbins, at the beginning of it all, a year ago, had this daily show on YouTube and all the social media platforms. And she had a kind of a daily homework assignment or challenge for us to do. And I had done it one day, and she actually highlighted me the next day. And so I was so excited because I think Mel Robbins is so incredible. And she spoke about me. So that was a super gift for me. That would not have happened if COVID hadn't happened. I, because of COVID, got to meet this incredible woman, Gabby, and she introduced me to a show about changing the world called The Social Movement that's going to be coming up soon. And now I'm going to be on that show. But my favorite gift for me personally was extra time with my family. I have a 14, an 18, and a 21-year-old. Who wants to, you know, those kind of ages, They don't normally want to spend time with their parents. They want to be out there just doing their own thing. But unfortunately, we were all stuck in lockdown and I had so much quality time with them. So that's time I will always be grateful for. And you can see as I talk about it, I'm beaming, because as we see the gifts, we start to feel happier. Gratitude really is a great mood shifter. And so you want to start by filling your cup. And I know this is the part that's hard for so many of us overachievers. We think we need to serve everybody else first, make sure everybody else's bucket is full before our own. But let's just think about like going to get our cup of coffee when we were at the office every day. Once the coffee cup is empty, we're getting nothing else out of it. It's the same with your own cup. If you deplete your own cup and you don't go refill it, you have nothing to give. So we need to start with ourselves. Does that make sense to people? I know it's hard to think about doing, but does it make sense? That's what I want to know. Whoop. All right. So one of the things you can do is start with a morning routine. I also want to say that the suggestions I'm going to give today, I don't want anyone to leave here feeling more overwhelmed, like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do all of these things? Don't do that. Pick one thing that you thought, yeah, you know what, that sounds like that could really make a difference in my life, and start with that one thing. And maybe that one thing you're only doing for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. If it's meditation and you've never done it, maybe you're doing it for 3 minutes. So, or even exercise. They show that just 3 minutes of cardio in the morning, heart rate raising cardio, can already start to help calm you and center you for the day. So Jim Quick will do it as he gets his coffee ready, he puts his coffee on and he's waiting for it to percolate, and he's doing jumping jacks for 3 minutes. So most of us can do exercise for 3 minutes. So if doing 20 minutes of exercise in the morning seems like, forget it, I'm not even awake. First of all, it will help wake you up. But if that's too much, then you just start with 3. Start with something small and build on it. So starting with a morning routine is an excellent way to get your day started off right. If anybody has a morning routine, I'd love for you to type out in the chat what you do already for yourself. And maybe you can find one other thing that you're like, oh, I'd like to add that, or I'd like to change that. Because sometimes we need to change it up too, right? If we feel like we're kind of plateauing and the old things aren't working for us, which actually I want to speak to that for a moment. So many of our regular coping strategies that we have built in have not been working for us. And that's because our stress management strategies, any kind of coping strategy, is designed to be a short-term strategy. But we have been in more than a short-term crisis. So they're not working for us anymore. So a really key thing is to make things smaller. Chunk them into manageable bite-sized pieces. Just really take things in smaller chunks than you would normally do. So normally I set goals when I'm going to create a new habit for 66 days. I can't do 66 days right now. I tried in January and it was just too much. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to focus on 30 days at a time. And 30 days worked for me. It seemed more manageable. Some areas of your life, you may only be able to take a week at a time, a day at a time, or an hour at a time. And that's okay. So chunking it into smaller increments of time or smaller parts of your whole goal, that is a key right now. If I can leave you with any one thing, I think that no matter what you do will be most helpful. So if it's your workload, chunk it into smaller things. If it's something, a new habit you're trying to do, chunk it into smaller pieces. Instead of, thinking we still have to have our quarterly goals and all of that, and that's fine. We may still need to set quarterly goals at work. But instead of really worrying about those quarterly goals, we might be really only thinking about weekly goals, because that's what our brain can handle right now. Because remember, we have that smaller window of tolerance. So a morning routine could include things such as meditation, prayer, reading the Bible, journaling, gratitude journaling, or just even brain dump journaling about your ideas. Brain dumps are also great at night, which we'll talk about next. Exercise. Now, I did tell you that just 3 minutes can start it, and that's great. If you feel like that's where you can do, 3 minutes is great. I will tell you that 20 minutes, which is what I do every morning, 20 minutes of heart rate raising cardio in the morning will increase your focus for 2 hours. So if you want increased focus, and maybe it's like mid-afternoon slump, if you can fit in 20 minutes of cardio, you can have an increase in focus for up to 2 hours. So sometimes you just think, I don't have time for that break, but we have to think, maybe do I have time not to take that break? And I encourage the same thing with meditation. I've been meditating in the morning for years, and let me tell you, I don't want you to tune me out. I know a lot of people are like, meh, this is where they tune out. Meditation's not for me. I get you. That was also me. My doctor used to ask me every time I went, so are you meditating? And of course I said I was. I wasn't meditating because I had tried it. No, not even. There's no quotations. I had really tried it many, many times. I could not calm this monkey mind. It was always racing around. I would lose the person's voice. I'd be off in my la la land of whatever was going on in my head. And then I'd be like, I guess I don't. And I'd get mad at myself because I couldn't follow their voice. I couldn't focus on my breathing. And it just became such a frustrating experience. So I stopped meditating. Who wants to do it if it's frustrating? Can anybody relate to that? Just being so frustrating? So I didn't do it. And then I'm so lucky that I had this amazing coach that said to me, why don't you try silent meditation? And I thought, is she for real? Why would I try silent meditation when I can't even calm my monkey mind when somebody's helping me? Somebody's telling me what to think about. I still can't even calm my monkey mind and focus. How am I going to calm it if I'm just silent? But I tried it because I believed in her, and it changed my life. Now I literally will not go a day without meditation. And now I just recently read a book where if you're thinking that meditation is not for me, this book was designed for the achiever in life, not for the, I can meditate for 3 hours. It's not designed for Buddhist monks who are able to meditate for a long time, or anybody that's very existentialist and gets that. No, it's designed for us people who have a hard time meditating. It's called Stress Less,
Good afternoon, everyone.
Accomplish More. Sorry, guys. School.
At this time,
So hopefully you can still hear me.
And we ask students with the surnames beginning with the letter A to the letter J to kindly make their way out of
no
the
way to
building.
turn that speaker off, unfortunately. I wish there was. So, Stress Less, Accomplish More by Emily Fletcher. Amazing book that talks for, I think, 8 chapters about why you'd want to meditate, the benefits of meditation, such incredible benefits. And then she starts into the how, and she suggests doing it twice a day. And a lot of people will tell her, I don't have time for 2 15-minute meditations. But she also will say to you, once you see how much more you can get done, once you are meditating twice for 15 minutes a day, you'll never turn back. And I have found that. I've only been doing the second meditation for about a month. In the last couple of weeks, I have found that to be so true. And I've had some of my most stressful days the last couple of weeks. And just being able to stop in that afternoon, have a meditative moment, I really felt on my A game again. So Stress Less, Accomplish More is a book recommendation. It's also an audiobook. So if you're more into audiobooks, you can get it on audiobook too. I am talking way too much, but it's okay. I can talk fast. Another great thing, of course, is to end with a nighttime routine. So I'm not going to read through all of these things. My number one recommendation is to shut off your phone or turn it to silent or put it outside your room. The days when I bring my phone into my room, those are the days I don't have a good sleep because I end up scrolling through social media or chatting with friends till way too late. The days I put it away at the time I promised myself I will, 100 times better because it gives your brain time to wind down as well. These are obviously, you can see some other suggestions as well. And do what brings you joy every day, even if it's just for a minute. So these are some ideas that just, as we are, many of us still working from home, maybe we're having some more family time. Maybe we're jumping up and down on the couch. Maybe we're doing karaoke, whatever it is, walking in nature, whatever brings you joy, get to it. Stay connected. I heard something today in a presentation about how we need to physically distance, not socially distance. So call a loved one, get on a Zoom call, go for a walk with friends or family outside where we can remain physically distant and still stay safe. Do not become socially isolated. Make a schedule. Now, you all are probably amazing at scheduling your workday. I'm sure you are because you're super organized by nature. Maybe you don't schedule everything that you want to do into your personal life, including the things like joy time and you time. So I would say, think about these things that you can see here. And perhaps you already have a schedule, but you want to add the joy time or the morning routine or the evening routine. When it's a new habit, scheduling it in is going to get it done. And I, just like in this photo, do use a schedule on my phone. That works for me, so I don't ever forget it at home. I don't forget the booklet. My phone is always with me. However, there are those when you are starting a new habit, it helps to write it down so that your reticular activating system can be more aware of it, and it can help it to stick more. And of course, I want you to stick to your schedule, but be flexible and understanding, not to be rigid with it. And an accountability partner in any of this can be super helpful. Remember, nobody's perfect. We will fail. Forgive yourself and others. And really, I don't even like to use that word fail because I think if we get back up and we learn, we're not failing. So I do offer workshops, courses, one-on-one coaching. If what you heard is something you'd like to hear more of, if there's any questions, I'd love to take them. And also, I do have a special gift to get you started that you can get a free scheduling template. I'm actually going to put it into the chat, or if you want to book a call to find out more about my services, please feel free. And there we go. I want to thank you all for attending on social media. This is how you can get in touch with me. My website, trinitytransformations.com. I'm at Transform with Emmy on all the social media. But thank you so much for joining us today. Do stay safe, keep healthy. Remember to just start small and build. And a really special thank you to torontojobs.ca for having me as a speaker today.
Well, thank you for the presentation. To everyone in the chat, I'm Jessie from torontojobs.ca. I'm one of the event organizers. Definitely some really good insights today. The meditation thing, I must say I've also tried meditating and I'm the same way. I can't slow my mind down. So I'm like, this is not for me, but maybe I'll rethink it. Maybe.
Yeah. There's so many kinds of meditation, so it's kind of like books. Try a new genre, try a new type of meditation until you find one that works for you.
But also, what I have to say, I really, really agree with, breaking things down into smaller parts, because I'm also the type of person that's like, oh, this is like too much. I can't do it all at once. With exercise, especially when you mentioned the 3-minute cardio thing, I was like, are you serious? 3 minutes is nothing, right? So
right.
Honestly, I think it's a lot of really actionable insights,
Excellent.
Yeah, and I wanna tell people in the chat, by the way, some of us, I think we're also thinking like, well, 3 minutes, what is that gonna do? Like, well, it's better than nothing, right? like you always have to remind yourself that it's better to do something than nothing, right? So especially now, like when you said, Emmy, people are very overwhelmed right now. They feel like they can't even get started on anything. So even doing a little bit, I think, is better than doing nothing at all. So
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thanks so much for coming out today and speaking. And thank you to everyone in the chat for attending. Absolutely.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for.
Yeah, of course. So do check out the links that Emmy sent in the chat. There's, a scheduling template that she sent out, and you can also do a discovery call with her. Definitely check those out. So right now, this is one of the last sessions for the day that we just had. We just have the controllers panel that's going to be on the main stage for our last sort of thing of the day. I'm very eloquent today, as you might have noticed.
It's all good. Perfectly imperfect is my philosophy.
Well, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So we just have the controllers panel on the main stage today, and you can find that. I will send the link in the chat for you guys. That'll be from now until the end of the event. So you can either check that out or do some speed networking in our networking area. But either way, thank you for coming out to the event today. And it's great to have everyone here. And Emmy, again, thanks for presenting and have a great afternoon. All right.
You too. Take care. Thanks a lot.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.